Welcome to the Love Mondays podcast. My goal is to bring inspiring and authentic guests who can help us all love our Mondays and every other day of the week. Today, I'm excited to welcome Larry Cooper, an accomplished CFO, business leader, author, speaker, and executive advisor. Throughout his career, he has helped organizations improve financial performance, navigate complex business challenges, and create sustainable growth. Larry is also the author of the book From Red to Black, where he shares practical lessons on leadership, financial transformation, and what it takes to move an organization from struggling performance to long-term success. What I love about Larry's story is that it combines deep financial expertise with practical leadership lessons that apply far beyond the finance function. Today, we'll explore the lessons from Red to Black, the role of finance in business transformation, and the top leadership lessons Larry has learned during his time as a CFO. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Ron, thanks for having me.
Amazing. Okay, let's start with the big question. Do you love Mondays?
Absolutely. I got to tell you, first, I want to congratulate you on this initiative, Ron. And I absolutely can't wait to that thing appear in my email on Monday mornings because number one, there's usually a chuckle. Number two, I got to tell you, you've had some amazing people there, and I'm honored that I'm amongst those amazing people now. And there's always a lesson. You do a great job of summarizing it, and it starts the day off great. So keep doing it.
Amazing. Well, today is Monday, and I haven't sent it yet, so you've just given me some homework. Okay, so let's give some folks maybe who don't love Mondays as much as us some advice from your perspective. What are some things they can do to maybe find a little bit more joy and fulfillment on Monday and every other day?
Well, I'm going to come with the biggie, which is purpose and your how. And if people dread Monday because they only look forward to the weekends, they have a problem. We've all, I'm sure, heard from various gurus that if you find your passion and that's what you work at, then work is no longer work. It's fun. And so that would be my biggest message to anybody. And of course, it's not always 100% possible, but there's a saying, do what you love. And that's how you'll look forward to Mondays.
Yeah, I love it. And, I've always been struck by your energy, Larry. Like myself and you are both McKay CEO Forum chairs. And it's just something different when Larry's on the call. You're going to feel some positive energy.
It's not fake. It's natural.
And I think, so tell me, how do you find that purpose? Like, what are some steps to find that calling or things that you love to do?
We can do the academic way, which is there's a book, and I can't remember the exact title, but How to Find How. The Cynic has written a book. So you can go that way and get very academic about it. I think most people, I'll tell you a quick story about myself. I've always loved math, and I always did well in math. And back then, you're good in math, you're going to be an accountant. Pretty simple. So I think people overcomplicate this stuff. And so that, particularly I'm talking to whoever's in your audience who's, 15, 20, 25, and who may be struggling or doesn't know where they want to go. Really think about, what do I like to do? Now, admittedly, you've got to say, how can I monetize it? I have to earn a living and make some money. So, we can't all be hippies and just lay on the beach and smoke weed. So you got to find something that's going to earn you a living. That's a criteria.
Amazing. Well, you might be one of the most fun CFOs I've ever interacted with. So I love that.
Actually, Ron, I got to tell you this. Do you know what CFO stands for?
Tell me.
Chief, it doesn't stand for Chief Financial Officer. No, Chief Fun Officer. Because when you're making money, you're having fun.
I love it. I didn't know which F word you're going to sprinkle in there, so I'm glad it was fun.
I forgot to ask. This is a PG, isn't it? I got to be careful.
No, we're fine. Okay, so you wrote the book From Red to Black, and what was really cool, the first few times I met you, you were always wearing red to black. So you're on brand. So it's not just finance, but marketing. But tell me the title. Tell me the spirit of the book that you wrote.
So Raymond Aaron, my publisher, is a very wise and smart man. And I was at one of his courses, and he's also smart in his marketing. So he'll give a course, good value, and he'll throw in some advertising, let's call it. So he goes into a speech about writing a book. And I had no intention of writing a book, but something hit me that day. Two things. Number one was legacy. I never had kids. And so I want to leave something behind. And second of all, I've been a CFO for too many years to count. And I got a lot of knowledge up here. And
Yes.
so I wanted to share it. And a book was the greatest vehicle to do it. So he sold me that day, and he has a great system to write books, and I got it done.
Yeah, no, I'm exposed to his methodology, and I think he does these webinars that, as you said, they provide some value, but they're really good at the sales side. And congrats to you, because I think it is a pretty short window that you write a book in, right?
Oh, yeah. He calls it his 10-10-10, 10 weeks, 10 chapters. And I forget what the other 10 is, but it works, truthfully. It really
Amazing.
did.
And what was that process like? Was it hard, grueling, easy? What was?
He has a series of, like, Raymond is a smart man, but he's also very much about process. He actually creates a series of videos, and like, you just follow the video step by step. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. Just do what he tells you to do. Obviously, the subject is yours, but the process of how to do it is his, and it works.
Amazing. And I love that answer of creating a legacy and just sharing the lessons learned, right? And, future CFOs maybe not falling in the same mud puddles or making the same mistakes. And it's about just, having people stand on your shoulders, so to speak. So congrats on that book.
Thank you.
Amazing. So let's shift into the CFO framework, right? So as you think about organizations, what are some mistakes they make in trying to turn around performance?
This is going to sound harsh, but I've seen too many times that, particularly marketing people, they get caught up in the emotion of whatever their idea is. And you're going to get the typical finance answer on this one. You have to deal, not an opinion, but facts and analysis. And so I've seen companies have an initiative and someone has a feeling, and yet they haven't done solid research. They haven't done analysis. They haven't done financial performance. And lo and behold, the old saying, hope is not a strategy. And so the ones that are sustainable, they go through the methodology and the mechanics of doing it right. And it's as simple as that. And the ones who don't are typically the ones that get in trouble.
So more rigor in initiatives, and as a finance team, we're looking for the data, the numbers as well, as opposed to just the feeling. Is that kind of the summary of what you just said? Okay, amazing. So I've been in lots of organizations which are public, and it's a quarterly system, right? So typically, when we're behind plan, it becomes around cutting overheads, for example, and training budgets and things like that. What's the focus on short term versus long term fixes for you?
Well, I have to admit, I've been in public companies, and I find it extremely annoying. Public companies report their earnings, stock market. We all know that earnings aren't necessarily the only thing about how a company's stock gets reflected in the market. A lot is emotion and portrayal. And so the companies know, though, they've got to meet whatever they had set the market expectations quarter to quarter, which doesn't always lead to the most optimal performance. Now, for those of you who are sports fans on here today, I'll give you an analogy to think about the Blue Jays. They signed Dylan Cease this past offseason, huge amount. I think it was 7 years for $210 million. Holy cow, that's a lot of money. But they don't just plan 1 year at a time. They have Kevin Gosman, who I believe was at $25 million a year. This is the last year of his contract. So what do you think? They've looked into next year, and at least, I'm sure they do at least 3-year serious planning. They could probably tell you a roster 2 years from now based on the existing players, who's still going to be there, what they're going to make, so they can figure out their payroll, which is the biggest expense in baseball. My point is, they do, I suspect, 3-year planning. And that's what businesses need to do, is do 3-year planning, stick to it. And I'm not telling you to do onerous budgets, but you've got to have a plan. You got to have a sense, hey, are we growing 10% a year because we got new products? Are existing products growing? Are we flat? Those are all the things that go into doing a 3-year plan that's got some significant thought behind it, but let's not get lost in the numbers. This shouldn't be a number exercise other than directionally. And then when you come to year 2, you've kind of already said, and you add a year the following year. And year 2 should be about, your budget now should be about the same. If it's not, then it's why not? And this is the rigor that companies need to get into in terms of longer planning. This is what the Chinese do. This is why, quite frankly, they're managing economy far better than North Americans and Europeans, etc.
Yeah, well, what I found refreshing is I went from a lot of these public companies, which look, it's the system. It's not individual companies. The system's broken because you got to hit those quarterly numbers. But I went to a private company and it was all about long term and bottom line thinking, right? Say, is this truly a good decision or is this a short term decision that's going to hurt our brand equity or things like that? So I absolutely loved that aspect. So why don't you talk me through like it feels like you're the type of CFO to be at the table to help make decisions rather than be in the background. How do finance folks and CFOs get to that point where the CEO or the owner of the company are relying on you to help make those decisions?
It's interesting you asked me that, Rod. It came up as one of our big rocks in my most recent group, CFO group meeting at McKay. And the first and foremost thing you've got to do is gain the credibility and trust of your CEO and your fellow C-suite executives. When I look at my career, and I did a talk, God, it's probably about 8 years ago, of the evolution of the CFO. And if we go back 10 or 20 years ago, what was the CFO? They were the chief accountant. What did that mean? They kept care of the books. They took care of the transactions. They kept the place on an even keel. And it was kind of like seen and not heard, or heard and not seen in the background. And, the marketing, the sales, the CEO, other than they needed something very mechanical, you had no involvement. It's probably been, I'd say 15, even 20 years that the evolution of the CFO and the phrase a business partner has come about. And what does that mean? That means exactly what it says. I'm not just a numbers guy. I'm the person that is really almost your co-pilot. In most organizations, if they actually have a hierarchy this way, next to the CEO or president, whatever the title is, the CFO is probably the second most important executive. Reason being, they, unlike a marketing or sales or whatever position, see everything. They better, otherwise they're not going to be able to do their job well. And so they become a bit of the backup right-hand person to that CEO. And so if you are performing in that way, and I think it's desired, but there's still an albatross to get over for that C-suite group of how they see, quote, the CFO. And that's why I don't like to call myself an accountant. No disrespect to our profession. But as you can tell already in these couple of minutes, as your audience would, I'm not your typical CFO. People meet me, and when I'll tell them what I do, nah, you're just kidding me, Larry. I says, no, it's the truth. Because as you can see, I have a lot of passion and energy, and that's just who I am. And I approach everything that way, including quote the numbers. And so I bring a different flavor to it. And I think there's an openness, unlike perhaps our stereotype. Oh, they're going to give me the numbers this way, that way, and that's the end of it. The old saying, yes, sir, no bag, 3 bags full shit. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, I think the narrative or the stereotype is changing. So I'll give you a couple of examples. And actually, it's Nestle who I think they actually use the terminology of co-pilot. So I love that you use that. But two of the folks who've actually spoken to my CEO groups. So Dino Bianco, CEO of Kruger Products. Mm-hmm. He's a CPA, spent much of his career in accounting, is now the CEO. And then Brian Kerr, again, he went from finance to sales to marketing, is now the CEO of Coworth the Dairy, a beloved Canadian brand.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And you just see how they're expanding across the country and stuff. So again, what they have in common is they had that 360 view of the business. They then worked on their communication skills, their leadership skills, and now they're leading huge organizations in a very promising way. And I think that leads me to the next question, which is if you see an organization maybe heading in the wrong direction, or maybe they're in the red and you need to turn them into the black, what is the Larry Cooper approach to that?
Well, I think there's 4 things that come to mind in terms of for successful companies. The first is strong documented processes. And this is where, notwithstanding my earlier comments about public companies, that was where I appreciated being in a public company. I mean, one of the things that my most recent role, we were a private company and the president was a colleague, friend. He was not my boss. And we took many of the processes we learned from the big multinational company. And that's something that I find in private companies is unusual. I don't like to use the phrase that they're operating by the seat of their pants, but it's certainly, that's far more common than them having strong documented processes that everybody follows. And if an auditor came in, they could see it. So that's number 1. Number 2, this one's the obvious in the motherhood, timely, accurate financial reporting. If it's taking you 60 and 90 days to get your financials, it's bad enough they're historical. But if it's taking that long, what good are they? You've got to have timely, obviously it's got to be accurate and it's got to be meaningful. So it's not just, here's the numbers. When you get into some of the things that have a variance, why? And really dig into it and get some, not trite answers, some meaningful stuff that's, to me, most important is actionable. You find something out. Give you a quick example comes to mind. We found out that we were having a lot of ocean freight shipments instead of by land. Why? We hadn't planned long enough in advance. And then to meet the deadlines, we needed then to go to the backup, which is far more costly, which is, by air. Then you get into, well, Mr. Operations Manager or Mrs. Operations Manager, why? And that's what I mean by digging deeper. That's the explanation. Why did it happen? That's where you got to do the digging. Third one, and this has become very typical now, I think, in companies, again, well-run companies, is KPIs, key performance indicators. And so financials are one thing, but I don't care who you are, by and large, your financials are once a month. I don't want to wait a month to know what's going on. I remember when I was the CFO at High & Zell's, this is a pharmacy grocery retailer. We would track by hour the number of customers in the store. So come the next day, back then you get it printed on a piece of paper on your desk.
Yes.
And you could see the trending and, Islington is down. What's going on? Phone up the manager. Take action. The last one, team-based leadership. You can have the most fantastic CEO, CFO, whatever. If you haven't got a team, certainly at least at the executive suite, but then all the way down the company within each functional area, you're not going to perform well. So those are my big four.
Yeah, I love it. It almost sounded like the first two were really foundational, process driven, and then it became a true business partnership where you're looking at the numbers, but actively asking questions and coming from a place of curiosity, right? And I think that's an important place to say, no judgment. Let's figure out a way to get better, right? So if your KPIs are down, and then maybe a follow-up on KPIs, right? Because I've been in organizations where you have a multitude of KPIs. I've also been at companies where there's a small number of KPIs. So what's your philosophy on, call it the optimal amount of KPIs to look at?
I'm not going to try and put a number to it, Ron. And I think every business is different. What I do believe is two things. Number one, the people in the business, the executive group, know what are the KPIs, or they should. And whether it's 2, 10, or 20, the point would be, let's not produce numbers if we're not going to use them. So I gave you the simple example of High & Zell's number of customers. That was a leading indicator of how many sales. You can see the sales are down. You right away go, how many customers do we have? Boom, you had the answer. So in that case, that was a very important KPI. And that's the second point. Leaving aside number is the right ones, the ones that are critical. And every industry is different. So that's the ones where you really have to know your business to sort of say, blank piece of paper, what do I need to know, be it daily, weekly, or monthly, that is going to tell me something that, other than walking the floor of whatever the business is, that I need to find out and need to know quickly. And that would be my basis upon what are those KPIs.
Yeah, I really like that example of number of customers per hour. And as you said on the floor, I was actually thinking about an experience where I was VP of finance for a beverage manufacturing company, and I would make it a point to get out on the floor at least twice a day. And a few months into it, I could really predict our profitability because you'd see, hey, this line has been down for a couple of days or 3 days, or all kinds of mechanics on certain lines. Okay, there's something going on here. But again, that curiosity, and then you could then say, okay, now I can almost predict what's going to happen. And importantly, course correct in real time, right? Which is really, really important. Okay, so I love all this content, but tell me about storytelling, right? So storytelling is also something that's become really important, right? You talked about, hey, from chief accountant to business partner. Tell me about the role of storytelling for a CFO or any finance professional for that matter.
You can probably tell, I've probably already told some stories, Ron. So I'm a storyteller. There's no question.
Yes.
And again, I think this is the evolution, certainly of the CFO role, that 20 years or however many years we want to go back is, here's the numbers. Now people, they don't want to just hear numbers. And I'm obviously speaking now in terms of a finance function, but I think this would be true of any executive function, is build whatever the issue is around a story, to give context that's something easy to remember. We kind of touched on it, and I'll make the story quick. Yes, I'm dressed in a black suit and a red shirt because the name of my book is Red to Black. And coincidentally, the day that Raymond, he does his teaching and he intersperses people who've written a book and he, gives them award and notoriety. He had just finished a segment on branding. And then he calls me up. He didn't even have to talk for 20 minutes. He says, there's branding. You see that? What's that? Red to black. That tells you all you need to know. So, and you know what? I think people, as long as the story's not too long, I think people enjoy a story because they're going to remember a story. Again, none of his, inauthentic, but they'll remember a story with a sort of a lesson far quicker. They will a bunch of facts, be they numbers or just words.
Yeah, no, I did a couple of workshops last week for finance teams, and we use these two acronyms. Let me see if you've heard of them before. So one is BLUF, BLUF. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
So get to the bottom line up front. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is TDLR, too long, didn't read. Right. So this applies to written communication as well. And I think one of the transitions to a great storytelling finance function is less is more, really understand what's in it for the audience and cater to them rather than going from our own shoes. And quick story, I went into this company month-end meeting, 70 slides for 60 minutes. And we were Usain bolting it through this session, and it was horrible. We went to 15 slides, gave ourselves the space, told some stories around the business, became a functional meeting that everybody participated. So I think that's sometimes a tendency is because we have all the numbers, all the info, we just want to jam it in. The skill set is about filtering what's really important here.
Absolutely. No question.
Amazing. Okay, so let's give some aspiring CFOs some advice. So you think about university students, maybe folks early in their career, round it out to say, what are the things that will help them become a great CFO?
All right. So first, you have to master your current role. Let's say you're the junior accountant doing bank recs. Well, you better be the best goddamn bank rec accountant there is, because until you are, that's what you're going to keep doing. So number one is master it so you can move on to the next thing, which leads me to the second point. Now, I know at a more junior level, this is hard, but develop a successor. If somebody can't take over your role, if they have to hire from outside, that's going to be a blocker for you. Now, again, I'm thinking of it at a little higher level. Let's say you're a controller and you've got an accounting manager and you want to be the CFO. I can tell you, until that accounting manager can fill your role, you're probably not going to get the CFO role. They'll hire over you. So you have to have people who, and then the old saying, God forbid you get hit by a bus. Who can take over your duties? This is risky, but necessary if you truly want to aspire to higher levels in your career. You have to take the risk of being replaceable. And I know that. A lot of people probably at more junior levels, they need me too much. They can't do without me. That's the wrong philosophy if your objective is higher up. If you're happy where you are, I can see that. But if you want to move up, then you have to have your role being able to be covered by somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying that, I really believe we all have to have a growth mindset or learning mindset, right? Because you think about the evolution of AI. I'd love you to, comment on, hey, as you see AI starting to come into basically every conversation, what's your thought from a finance function? Like, what should finance folks do to maybe be in the game as AI starts to be more prominent?
Well, I hope they're more than in the game, Ron. In fact, again, it was another big rock in my most recent McKay CFO meeting, which exactly was your question. What should finance departments be doing? And the interesting thing is we had Jamie McMahon from ProServe IT speak to us, and there was a lot of ahas because he did a practical example using, I forget if he used Copilot or Claude, and he showed taking a trial balance, which for those who don't know finance is just the listing of all the accounts, and in a minute, he had a financial statement. In a minute or two more, he did all kinds of analysis that currently probably are done by humans using Excel. And so one of my members made the astute comment. We used to look for people who were whizzes in Excel. You know what? That skill, unfortunately, will no longer be that important because AI will do it for you. Now we need somebody to tell AI what to do, how, sort of what data to use, and then get the end product. And it's now the end product, having managed the data, to do something with. The second thing that came out was we can't be lone wolves, particularly in the CFO role. Let's say that I'm a whiz at Claude Copilot. That's great. But if I got a team of 10 people under me and I'm just doing it, I'm back to one of the age old problems as a leader is that I'm not delegating. So this has to be a team thing. Everybody's got to be using it. You have to have a plan of what do we do as a department? In fact, what do we do as a company with AI? Be it, again, Cloud Copilot, chat, doesn't matter which tool. The point is the process, the learning, the development, the sharing, that's all got to be part and parcel of your plan. And there's no question. It's not only is it coming, it's here. And the more I'm sure you talk to people who are in the know or people who are like you and I, Ron, have that curiosity factor as a mindset. People are using it and they're using it more. And you're going to get left behind, frankly, if you're not.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. My partner Paul, who's a global leader in finance in the US, he's always been at the leading edge of AI. And so he was telling me AI amplifies your skill set. So as much as yes, it's moving really fast, that there is still a need to understand the fundamentals because AI does hallucinate and there are issues there as well. So bit of a watch out. Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying, but it really is important still to learn the fundamentals.
No
Okay,
question.
I'd love to just before I want to ask you about McKay in a second, but anything else related to being a CFO or finance that maybe we haven't covered?
Well, let me finish. I didn't finish your answer in terms of how to build a successful career. I think one of the biggest things, networking. Um, I've been a pretty good networker in my career, and I think maybe networking's got a bad rap. I think that, and I've kind of indirectly learned it through our McKay experience, which is peer learning. Well, you have to have peers to learn from, right? So if you're not fortunate enough to be in a group like McKay, then you need to do it on your own, which means building your own network with peers so that when you have an issue, you've got somebody to call, other than quote your auditing company. You want to have your own network to make yourself much more self-sufficient. Couple quick more, Ron. Keep learning beyond your job. And this again goes to being the business partner. Like, don't limit yourself. Just because something doesn't seem to be in the CFO's bailiwick, so what? Maybe you'll get your knuckles wrapped because you did it, but that's better than not doing it. And the last one, which quite frankly is the biggest thing that I think I've been successful with in my career, is the combination of seeking mentors. I've been lucky enough to have some excellent bosses, and they were tremendous mentors to me as I rose up the ranks in different companies. But the second thing is what you can have a mentor, but here's the other piece that's important on you being feedback. You've got to ask for it. You can't just wait till your annual appraisal review. And then if I asked you for feedback, Ron, and then I do nothing, you're not going to give me any more. So you've got to show not just that I'm trying to understand my performance, but I'm very active, involved in improving it. And I'm showing that to you. So you'll want to give me more feedback and you want to give me more advice, etc. And those are the two key ingredients for me of how I've done well in my career.
Yeah, I love the constant learning and networking. And, I was guilty of not networking enough early in my career. And I've really learned the importance of it because, as you said, you meet peers, you meet people in different industries, you see different ways of doing things rather than just being stuck in one way of doing things. So, absolutely love that. Okay, last word on finance. Anything else you want to share? I think we've covered some great ground on finance.
Um, it's evolving. You've got to evolve with it. Don't resist what seems to be the evolution. And you can't stick in the old style because certainly the modern CEO wants the business partner, which is interesting. As you ask me that question, I'm thinking aloud. If I came to a business owner who I found was, let's call them traditional, your finance, you do the numbers and that's it. With my personality, forget about the loud and all that sort of stuff, but my belief system, that would not be a good match. I need a CEO who truly wants finance as a partner because that's what I want to be.
Yes.
And it's not to put down I remember early, not early, but I remember years ago, I had to have a role. The person was just an accountant. That's all they were. Nothing wrong with that. But I had to have the right person. And I was lucky enough to have somebody on staff, loved accounting. So that was wonderful for me. Here, Dennis, go do this. I don't have to worry about it. Right. So you have to have people with the right skill in the right place.
Amazing. Love it. Okay. So one of the other things we have in common is we're both McKay CEO chairs. You mentioned that quite a few times. So it's essentially peer learning where you and I facilitate groups of CEOs or CFOs in your case, and we help them through opportunities and challenges. So tell me what that experience has been like for you over the last few years, and maybe a couple of things you've learned along the way.
Well, first and foremost, I have been a mentor to many people in my career. And I think at this stage of my career, I've realized that that's my calling. And so first, I get a great enjoyment out of, not to say I'm the best CFO in the group, but I have the longest tenure. And so I've probably come across more different circumstances than people in the group. And so typically, I'm one of the people who's giving a shared experience. And
Yes.
so, as I say, it gives me great pleasure, just again, back to having why I wrote the book. So I'm taking what's up here and saying, here, I want to share it with you. And then, of course, the second aspect is to see that person grow and prosper in their role and feel that I had something to do with that. Those are the two things for me that are, and then I don't have to tell you, Ron, but I guess we'll tell your audience that, the McKay community is fantastic. And, fellow chairs like you and I and our other fellow chairs are wonderful human beings. And I think this style, belief, desire to help, comes from the top with Nancy. There's no
Yes.
question that she is the premier person of that. But it evolves within the organization, and she is, kudos to her, finding people that's what we enjoy doing. And so,
Yes.
similar to my comment about the right CEO for a CFO, she finds chairs that this is their buzz about what makes them go and happy and contributing.
Yeah, and it's around finding the right teammates, the right people, the right energy around this organization. So I've also learned so much, and being able to facilitate a group of executives for a full day is a skill set that's helped me in all parts of my life.
Well, I have
Right? So
no doubt.
it's yeah, it's constant learning. Okay, Larry, I absolutely love your energy. So keep it going. But what would you like to leave my listeners with? What is some final thoughts from you on loving Mondays?
Well, we've kind of talked about. I think I mentioned at the top of the hour, which was a sense of purpose. And Mondays is just, I think, a symbol, if you will, for the work week starts.
Yes.
And like I've said earlier, you don't want to dread. Oh, how many people do we know? The weekend's over. I got to go back to work. Think about that. If you're going to work
Yes.
40 years times 52 weeks in a year, 2,000 weeks every Monday. Oh, it's Monday. Wouldn't you rather? It's Monday. Let's go. I'm excited. What are we going to do today? And so that would be the key lesson I would give everybody. But don't just limit it to Mondays. That should be every day of your life. And, I don't know if you're going to give me another opportunity, so I'll throw it in here right now. Those of you baseball fans, do you remember Tug McGraw, New York Mets, 1969, the Miracle Mets? And he had to say, yes, you can, which meant believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to?
Fantastic. So we'll leave on that eloquent note. Larry, thank you very much. You've helped me love today, which is Monday, a little more, and really appreciate your generosity and energy in today's conversation.
It's been my pleasure. And thank you again, Ron, for inviting me.